Could one human truly survive when the Federation's apex predators were programmed for relentless obedience? Could empathy outweigh centuries of genetic conditioning? Selara Vynn, the lead field strategist, wondered this as she stepped into the Galactic Council's high-tech combat arena, surrounded by the Death Worlder cubs, genetically enhanced apex predators engineered for obedience and combat superiority. Will the cubs obey the Council or defy centuries of programming? The arena stretched vast and metallic, reflective floors glowing faintly with embedded energy grids. Walls rose like monolithic towers, lined with holographic displays projecting interstellar battle simulations. Miniature starships clashing, plasma cannons firing, and apex predators executing tactical maneuvers in perfect synchrony. Every projection flickered with potential outcomes, feeding into the minds of the observing council members, who sat in ceremonial uniforms with faces like cold steel, evaluating every heartbeat, every motion, and every breath. Their collective expectation was clear: total obedience or failure would be catastrophic. Selara's pulse quickened as she surveyed the cub's precise movements. Each step, tilt of the head, flick of a tail was measured, programmed, and lethal. The leader pup, a Death Worlder with iridescent chitinous markings across its muscular frame, stared at her with golden, intelligent eyes, calculating, weighing, waiting for a command. The other cubs mirrored its posture, forming a predatory tableau of latent power, ready to strike the instant they were triggered. A low hum resonated through the arena's floor, subsonic vibrations from the energy grids below, adding tension to the silence. Selara felt it in her chest. Each subtle tremor mirrored the cub's own anticipation. Every observer could feel the unspoken question: could a single human presence influence apex predators engineered to kill? Before General Kale could give his official command, the arena's automated systems flashed red. The display read, "Simulated Combat Sequence Alpha Initiated." Expected to react immediately, the cubs paused, their heads tilted, not toward the holographic targets, but toward Selara. The leader pup made the smallest lateral movement, a subtle stance that redirected the others into a semicircle around her. The council gasped in unison. Such hesitation was unheard of. Apex predators were designed for instant obedience. A delay like this could indicate a glitch, or worse, conscious evaluation. Selara's mind raced. She whispered softly, "Observe, choose, survive." Her voice was calm, measured, not a command, but an invitation. The cub's eyes flickered, analyzing her movements, registering intent rather than force. She could sense a shift in neural patterns, micro-adjustments in behavior that could only be explained as cognition overriding programming. General Kale's voice cut through the arena, sharp and unforgiving. "Field Strategist Vynn, the cubs will not tolerate hesitation. Disobedience will be considered a failure of command protocol and will result in immediate containment measures." The other council members exchanged terse glances, their bodies rigid in ceremonial posture. Energy monitors along the walls displayed biofeedback from the cubs, neural impulses that should have been predictable but now displayed emergent patterns of independent decision-making. Selara inhaled, steadying herself. Her eyes scanned each cub in meticulous detail. The leader's forelimbs flexed slightly, tail swishing in measured agitation. The middle-tier cubs, smaller, more agile, shifted stance minutely, ready to mirror the leader. The youngest pups trembled, uncertainty written in subtle muscle tension, but their gaze never left Selara. The tension was almost palpable in the air, a living thing. Despite her calm, Selara was precariously outnumbered. She was surrounded by apex predators engineered for war, each a potential killer with the mental programming of an elite soldier and the instincts of a predator. The entire Galactic Council watched, a living jury, analyzing every heartbeat, ready to act if the cubs hesitated further, or worse, acted against her. Yet Selara understood one truth: human intuition and empathy were her greatest weapons. Force could be countered, commands could be ignored, but trust, when earned, could bend even apex predators' actions. A soft growl emitted from the leader pup, not aggressive, but resonant, almost communicative. The other cubs mirrored it, creating a tense but ordered formation around her. Each movement was a decision, not a command, a subtle statement that the cubs were assessing her intentions over the council's authority. Selara's mind raced with calculations. Could she influence these apex predators without triggering lethal enforcement protocols? Could her calm, confident presence override centuries of engineered obedience? Could empathy truly command loyalty in creatures designed only for destruction? The arena seemed to stretch infinitely, a crucible of genetic perfection versus human ingenuity. Every eye, claw, and twitch of muscle in the cub's semicircle was a signal, a question, and a decision all at once. She realized that the entire Galactic Council's assumption of control was now being tested not through brute force, but through the subtle power of trust and connection.
Selara Vynn's boots clicked lightly against the energy-lined floor, echoing through the vast Galactic Council combat arena. Each sound seemed amplified, reverberating off the metallic walls, a constant reminder that every movement she made was being watched, not just by the cubs, but by the entire Federation. She could feel the weight of the Council's expectations pressing down on her chest, yet the cub's hesitant semicircle gave her a fleeting sense of leverage, fragile but real. Despite her outward calm, Selara knew her position was precarious. She was alone in the center of apex predators, creatures designed with perfect obedience and lethal precision. Each Deathworlder pup could end the simulation, or worse, her credibility, if it misinterpreted her movements. The Galactic Council's eyes followed every twitch, every breath, expecting perfection and compliance. Selara questioned herself silently. Could empathy truly influence genetically programmed predators? Was her strategy of trust rather than intimidation enough to hold against centuries of conditioning? Would the cubs perceive hesitation as weakness and follow protocol instead of her guidance? Her pulse accelerated as the leader pup shifted slightly, muscles tensing like coiled springs. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Selara felt it in her chest, a reminder that she was still the underdog, still vulnerable. Unexpectedly, one of the younger cubs, normally hyper-aggressive and reactive, stepped forward without command. Its amber eyes met Selara's, not in challenge, but in calculated assessment. She froze momentarily, sensing the significance. The cubs were testing her, evaluating her reactions, rather than waiting for instructions. Across the observation deck, a Federation officer whispered to another, "This isn't supposed to happen. The cubs should be following the protocol blindly." Selara understood immediately. Her influence was taking root, but the consequences were unpredictable. Could she guide them without losing control? Without triggering the Council's wrath? The Galactic Council did not relent. General Kale's voice boomed through the arena, sharp and commanding. "Field Strategist Vynn, the cubs are to execute the combat sequence precisely. No deviations will be tolerated." Selara inhaled, steadying her racing heart. She whispered softly to the cubs, "Observe, choose, survive." Her calmness was deliberate, a subtle exercise of authority without aggression. The leader pup tilted its head slightly, mirroring her tone rather than the Council's command. The other cubs responded in kind, forming a protective, adaptive formation around her, an unprecedented act of selective obedience. The Council's alarms blared faintly as neural monitors tracked unexpected patterns of decision-making in the cubs. Their bioneural feedback displayed behavior never programmed: choice, assessment, and strategic alignment, all pointing toward human influence overriding protocol. Suddenly, a holographic projection of the arena displayed a secondary threat simulation, activating a high-speed drone attack. Normally, the cubs would instinctively target the drones as instructed, but instead, the leader pup moved to shield Selara, guiding the younger cubs to form a dynamic protective barrier, leaving the drones partially unchallenged. Selara's mind raced. The cubs weren't just trusting her, they were making tactical decisions influenced by her presence, independent of programming. This subtle but profound shift threatened to destabilize the Council's entire control model. From the observation deck, General Kale's hands clenched. "They are not following protocol," he barked. "They are choosing. This is unacceptable." Selara's inner conflict intensified. She was undeniably vulnerable, yet she realized her empathy was her strength. The Cubs were mirroring her confidence, her calm decision-making, and the arena had become more than a test, it was a crucible. The human mind, guided by patience and understanding, was proving more influential than centuries of genetic engineering. She asked herself quietly, could a single human truly inspire loyalty and strategic obedience in apex predators? Was this the beginning of a new paradigm where empathy and intelligence outweighed brute force? Could she survive the Council's scrutiny while guiding the Cubs through chaos? The arena's energy grids pulsed softly, casting shifting reflections across metallic surfaces. The Cubs' semicircle adjusted subtly, their movements now predictive, almost anticipatory, creating a tangible tension between human guidance and programmed control. The Council members leaned closer, whispering among themselves. Every observer could sense the danger. One misstep by Selara, one incorrect movement, and the delicate balance could collapse. Yet the Cubs' adaptive obedience was a proof of concept, a subtle hint of rebellion in progress. Selara smiled faintly to herself, knowing this was only the beginning. Her underdog status had transformed into strategic influence, her calm confidence reshaping apex predator behavior in real time.
The arena fell into a tense silence as Selara Vynn's calm gaze swept over the Death Worlder Cubs. Their eyes, glinting like molten gold, followed her every subtle movement, testing her will, her intent, and her control. The semicircle formation they had assumed around her was not just defensive, it was a statement. Each pup, genetically designed for absolute obedience, was now exhibiting signs of independent decision-making, subtly defying centuries of conditioning. The Council's observation deck hummed with tension. Neural monitors displayed erratic biofeedback, synapses firing in unpredictable patterns, micro-movements unaligned with programming, subtle deviations from combat protocol. This was unprecedented. The Federation scientists whispered amongst themselves, disbelief etched across their faces. No apex predator had ever demonstrated conscious choice under human influence before. Selara's mind raced. She had expected resistance, even aggression, but not conscious deliberation. The Cubs were calculating, evaluating, and most importantly, choosing. The first act of rebellion. The first decisive moment came when a holographic combat drone activated at the far edge of the arena. Normally, the Cubs would have struck it immediately, obeying pre-programmed directives. Instead, the leader pup shifted slightly, positioning itself between Selara and the drone, tail flicking to signal the others. Selara's breath caught. The Cubs were prioritizing her safety over the Council's command. This was the first unmistakable act of conscious rebellion. She whispered quietly, "Observe, trust, decide." The leader pup's ears twitched in acknowledgement, and the others mirrored the subtle motion. The Council erupted in murmurs. General Kale's voice cut through. "This is impossible. They should attack, not protect." Yet the Cubs did not respond to his outrage. They stood their ground, scanning, analyzing, ready to react, but only to Selara's influence. Selara realized that this was more than loyalty. It was a strategic alliance forming in real time. The Cubs were not merely obeying, they were assessing threats, weighing outcomes, and choosing actions that aligned with her intent. A second wave of simulated combat drones launched from the opposite side of the arena. The leader pup signaled, and without command, the Cubs moved into a dynamic formation, a blend of offense and defense. They intercepted the drones efficiently, but ensured Selara remained at the center, unscathed. The audience gasped. Federation scientists and council members alike were frozen in disbelief. The Cubs, engineered as tools, were now partners capable of independent strategic thinking. Selara's influence was overriding programming, and the implications were staggering.
The Cub's semicircle formation began to morph into a tactical wedge, a shape not taught or simulated. Selara noticed micro-adjustments. The leader pup calculated trajectory to intercept incoming attacks. The smaller cubs positioned themselves to cover blind spots. One young pup, previously hesitant, took initiative to flank the drones, a move no protocol had ever dictated. The Council's neural monitors blinked furiously. These behaviors did not match any known program, and yet the cubs executed with perfect synchronization. They were choosing strategy, not following orders. Selara whispered a second time, "Trust your instincts. Follow your choice." Her words were calm, but layered with authority that resonated deeper than any command protocol. The leader pup nodded subtly, and the others followed. They were no longer cubs. They were decision makers, allies, and strategists. General Kale's face darkened. "They are not following protocol, they are thinking. How is this possible?" Selara's eyes scanned the arena. Every pup acted as if guided by a collective consciousness shaped by her presence, yet independent in execution. She realized the Council had underestimated the power of empathy and human intuition. This was more than trust. It was revolution in motion, right there on the arena floor. The drones, once symbols of control and intimidation, now served as catalysts for the cubs to demonstrate their strategic intelligence. Each interception, each movement, each protective maneuver reinforced Selara's unique bond with these apex predators. Apex predators, genetically designed to obey, were now thinking, strategizing, and choosing loyalty based on human influence. The narrative demonstrated human intellect and empathy as superior to programmed control. The arena had become a crucible for HFY storytelling, the power of humanity to inspire trust and loyalty in the most formidable beings. Selara noticed subtle changes. The Cubs' movements hinted at long-term strategic thinking. They were preparing not just for defense, but for potential offensive maneuvers if the situation demanded it. The Council, watching from above, could sense the emerging threat. A single human had disrupted centuries of controlled obedience.
The arena's silence shattered as the first signs of rebellion rippled through the semicircle of Deathworlder cubs. Council members leaned forward in their seats, the metallic floors vibrating faintly under their collective tension. Every whisper, every eye movement, every shift in body language conveyed disbelief and mounting anxiety. The apex predators were making decisions independent of centuries of genetic programming, and the human at the center, Selara Vynn, remained unharmed and unflinching. General Kale slammed his fist onto the observation console. "Field Strategist Vynn, this is a failure of command protocol. These cubs are engineered to obey, not to choose." His voice echoed across the chamber, commanding attention, yet failing to assert control over the situation unfolding below. The cubs did not react to Kale's shouting. Instead, their movements became more calculated, as if assessing the very intentions of the council itself. The leader pup tilted its head, glancing briefly at the holographic projections of simulated enemies, then back at Selara, signaling the others to maintain formation. This semicircle, a simple protective stance moments ago, had become a dynamic, adaptive guard, a living testament to selective obedience. Council members shock and confusion. Members of the Galactic Council exchanged tense whispers. Commander Ilara, a veteran of interstellar strategy, muttered under her breath, They are choosing over protocol. This is unprecedented." The Council's neural monitors displayed erratic readings, synapses firing out of predicted sequence, biofeedback data showing signs of cognitive independence. These were apex predators, apex genetic designs, designed to obey, to execute commands without question, yet here they were, guided not by programming, but by human influence. Selara's calm presence had effectively disrupted centuries of behavioral conditioning. The Council's sense of authority, meticulously crafted over decades, was being undermined in real time. The arena became a crucible, a place where human intuition collided with engineered obedience, and for the first time, empathy overpowered control. General Kale's voice rose further. "Initiate containment protocols, override behavioral programming." Selara remained still, whispering, "Observe, trust, decide." Her words resonated subtly through the energy grids, more as an invitation than a command. The leader pup responded instantly with a slight lateral shift, signaling the cubs to hold position. Other cubs mirrored the motion, reinforcing the semicircle, demonstrating cohesion and trust rather than fear. Council technicians scrambled to adjust the control interfaces, attempting to force compliance, but every command sent electronically to the cubs was met with resistance, minor deviations that, when compounded, nullified the Council's directives. The arena itself seemed to bend around Selara's presence, the apex predator's loyalty redefining the rules of engagement. Selara recognized the moment for what it was, a critical turning point. If the cubs continued to exercise choice over obedience, this would not remain an isolated incident. Word would spread through the Federation: a human can influence apex predators, a notion that could destabilize the entire command structure. The arena's energy grids pulsed in sync with the cubs' movements, casting shimmering reflections on metallic surfaces. Their synchronization and independent decision-making formed a visual metaphor for rebellion, one that the Council had never anticipated. Every Council member felt the unsettling weight of unpredictability. The apex predators had begun to rewrite the rules of control. Selara's eyes met the leader pups. The golden gaze held no malice, only calculated trust. For the first time, the human presence dictated the course of the simulation, not the artificial programming embedded in the cubs' DNA. The Council's authority, so absolute moments ago, now strained under the weight of human influence and apex intelligence.
The arena had fallen into an uneasy rhythm. The metallic floors reflected the golden sheen of the Deathworlder cub's fur, each movement precise, yet imbued with a newly found independence. Selara Vynn stood in the center, chest rising and falling steadily, her gaze scanning the formation she had come to see not merely as predators, but as partners. The Council's authority loomed above, yet their words had begun to fade into irrelevance against the bond forming below. Selara's mind raced, remembering every calculation, every minute of observation that had led her to this moment. The cubs were no longer tools of war. They were sentient decision-makers, capable of empathy and trust. Selara knew that the cubs' trust had to be earned, not demanded. As a test, she moved deliberately into the center of the arena's open ground, positioning herself directly in the path of the simulated drones. Every council member watching anticipated catastrophe. A single misstep could trigger aggression, containment measures, or worse, failure of the experiment. "Step aside, human," one technician shouted, urgency in their voice. But Selara remained calm. Her eyes met the leader pup's golden gaze. "I trust you," she whispered. "I trust your choice." A soft, almost imperceptible growl resonated from the leader pup. The other cubs shifted subtly, forming a protective formation, a living shield around her. Every drone that approached was intercepted or neutralized, not by programmed instinct alone, but by the cubs' conscious decisions, guided by trust. Selara exhaled, realizing the full weight of the moment. She was not merely guiding the cubs, she was co-leading with them. Their loyalty was no longer a result of programming, it was earned through empathy, observation, and subtle guidance. The youngest pup, usually hesitant and skittish, stepped forward, placing itself at the forefront of the formation. Its amber eyes, usually filled with caution, now reflected unwavering trust. Selara's heart surged. This was the pinnacle of emotional resonance, human and predator aligned, instinct and intellect fused, authority challenged and rewritten. Above, General Cal's hands trembled. The other council members exchanged alarmed glances. How could this human, so vulnerable, so outnumbered, inspire true loyalty and apex predators? It was unprecedented. Every simulation, every protocol had predicted obedience or failure. Never a mutual bond formed under pressure. Selara's whisper floated over the arena again. Observe, trust, survive. Each word resonated through the cubs, reinforcing the unspoken contract of partnership over obedience. The cubs responded, tiny adjustments in formation and posture, subtle nods to one another, all centered around her presence. The arena's automated systems initiated a secondary threat, A simulated predator unleashed in the far corner, its path set directly towards the formation. The cub's programmed instincts would normally attack or ignore Selara. Instead, the leader pup calculated the trajectory, signaling the others to intercept while maintaining a protective barrier around her. Selara's mind raced. She had exposed herself intentionally, knowing that their trust would be tested, that her vulnerability could either cement their loyalty or end the experiment in disaster. The cubs acted with precision, each movement a calculated decision, demonstrating both trust in her judgment and their own strategic reasoning. In that moment, Selara understood something profound. She was not just saving the cubs, she was discovering her own strength through them. The apex predators, genetically engineered for war and obedience, had chosen her as their partner, their center of strategy and trust. Her empathy and calculated calm had created something far beyond what any command protocol could dictate. The arena was alive with tension and awe. The Federation scientists and council members could see it, could measure it, could not deny it. The human had inspired independence, loyalty, and strategic thought in apex predators, redefining the power dynamic entirely.
The arena's silence stretched, thick with tension, as the cubs maintained their formation around Selara Vynn. Their decision-making, once thought impossible, had not only saved the human strategist, but had also demonstrated a new paradigm of apex predator autonomy. Every subtle movement, every calculated positioning of the leader pup and its cohort was a statement against the authority of the Galactic Council. Above, the council convened in urgent whispers. General Kale's face was taut with disbelief. How can a single human bend apex predators, engineered for obedience, to her will? He demanded, his voice echoing through the observation deck. The other council members exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable but tense. The implications of Selara's influence were beginning to cascade beyond the arena itself. The Federation's apex predators were more than mere tools. They were symbols of the Council's authority and the Empire's dominion across star systems. If these cubs could choose loyalty over obedience, strategy over command, then the entire hierarchical control structure of the Federation was vulnerable. Selara observed the cubs, noting their subtle adjustments, synchronized movements, and protective instincts. Each act of independent choice was a micro-rebellion, signaling a potential shift in the balance of power. What had started as a controlled test now resembled the first tremors of a larger insurrection. Could other apex predators across the Federation observe, learn, and replicate this behavior? Could humans, previously viewed as inferior, leverage empathy and strategy to inspire loyalty in engineered soldiers? Could the Galactic Council contain the repercussions of this unexpected deviation? These questions hung in the air, unspoken yet palpable, as every observer realized the scope of what had transpired. Selara's influence had become a proof of concept. If trust and empathy could shape apex predator behavior, then the Federation's reliance on control through fear and genetic programming was no longer absolute. News of the Cubs' defiance would not stay confined to the arena. Other human operatives and strategists could adopt similar methods, potentially redefining engagement strategies across multiple theaters of combat. The leader pup shifted slightly, tilting its head toward the holographic enemy projections. Selara interpreted this as a signal of awareness and readiness, a conscious decision to anticipate threats without directive. This autonomous behavior suggested that the Cubs were capable of strategic thought, not just reactive obedience. The Council's technicians scrambled to recalibrate monitoring systems, attempting to suppress anomalies in neural feedback. But the Cubs' behavior had become unpredictable, demonstrating that human influence could override centuries of engineered obedience. Selara felt the weight of the moment. The Cubs' loyalty to her, forged through trust rather than fear, was a spark capable of igniting a broader challenge to Federation authority. Across the star systems, similar apex predators might now reassess programmed commands when influenced by humans, creating a ripple effect that could destabilize entire strategic operations. Apex predator squads questioning orders in live combat. Human commanders employing trust-based tactics instead of force. Entire battalions shifting allegiance when faced with empathetic leadership.
The arena's energy grids pulsed in alignment with the Cubs' movements, reflecting the rhythm of an emergent partnership between human ingenuity and apex predator intelligence. This visual spectacle was a metaphor for the broader implications. The Federation's rigid control could be softened, adapted, or even overturned by strategic human influence. General Kale's hands clenched the railing. "If this pattern continues," he muttered, "our apex predator units could refuse orders en masse. Our entire command structure could be undermined." Other council members nodded grimly. The implications were staggering. One human had demonstrated that empathy, intuition, and strategic calm could surpass even the most advanced genetic programming. Selara's calm influence had turned apex predators into partners, not instruments. The Federation's authority was no longer unchallenged. The arena, once a controlled testing ground, had become the stage for a potential revolution.
The arena was quiet now, the tension from before settling into a charged anticipation. Every flick of a Deathworlder pup's tail, every subtle stance adjustment, radiated calculated loyalty and trust towards Selara Vynn. She stood in the center, her chest rising and falling steadily, aware that every eye in the arena, council members, scientists, and apex predators alike, was focused on her. For the first time, human intuition and empathy had reshaped the behavior of apex predators, creatures engineered to execute commands without question. The leader pup's gaze locked with hers, eyes shimmering like molten gold, conveying unspoken allegiance. The other cubs mirrored the stance, their formations shifting to guard her, adapt, and anticipate. No longer mere programmed instruments, but co-strategists, allies, and partners. Selara raised her hand, not as a command, but in acknowledgement of the bond formed. The cubs responded instantly, aligning around her in perfect harmony. The Galactic Council's representative, General Kale, exhaled sharply, realizing the magnitude of what had transpired. The cubs had defied centuries of genetic obedience, choosing loyalty to a human over their programmed orders. This was more than a tactical success. It was a paradigm shift. The Federation had relied on control through programming, fear, and authority. Yet one human had demonstrated that empathy, trust, and strategic calm could surpass even the most advanced genetic engineering. As the arena doors opened, holographic broadcasts from across the star systems began showing similar cubs in remote Federation colonies hesitating, evaluating, and in some cases defying commands, inspired by the story of Selara's influence. Her presence and calm demeanor had sparked a ripple effect of independent thought and loyalty across the Federation's apex predator units. Council members exchanged alarmed glances. The implication was undeniable. The Federation's rigid control could no longer be absolute. One human's strategic influence had challenged the very foundation of apex predator obedience. Selara allowed herself a small smile, whispering to the leader pup, "We've only begun." The pup's growl was low, affirming, a shared understanding of what lay ahead. Apex predators and humans were no longer in a strict hierarchy of command. Trust, empathy, and collaboration had become more potent than fear and programming. The Federation's narrative had changed. A single human could inspire strategic independence, loyalty, and courage in genetically enhanced beings. Across the stars, whispers began of a new age where humans and apex predators could act as equals, as partners, and as co-strategists. The arena was silent, yet the impact reverberated far beyond its walls. Every council member, every Federation scientist, every observer knew that the rules had changed. Selara's methods had proven that human intuition and understanding were powerful forces capable of guiding even the deadliest apex predators.